Taking a trip through the Big Apple is always a nice excursion. The towering high-rises, the waft of pizza from every old entrepreneur's long-enduring family restaurant. Most notably, however, is the indescribable complexity and daily lives of everyone around, mulling about like ants in a terrarium, and I too am part of the colony. It is a kind of catharsis. Like a cog, I am moved to do my part by the thousands, millions of other cogs in the great machine of New York City. But this evening, however, I received a text from Carla, my beloved. She called me for a date night of sorts, asking to meet up at one of our favorite Greek restaurants. The nature of how we are together may be baffling to some. Carla lives further north of Manhattan, much further north than I. We live a great distance, but our enjoyment of the restaurant had brought us together. Neither of us drive. It's New York City. However, even if Carla did have her own vehicle, I would not make her claw her way through traffic just to retrieve me. No, we opt instead to walk, which is fine by me. I live a greater distance, but a good stroll has never demotivated me before, and certainly would not come between me and Carla. But all that aside, I am here now, strolling through Manhattan. I follow on the sidewalk behind a woman in a coat of deep purple. I can't help but notice her gloved hand trailing over the washing machines lining the path, the trail from her fingertip leaving a smudged road from one to the next. Washing machines. I stop dead. A man behind me knocks my shoulder, cursing me out under his breath. I step to the side to avoid any more collisions. Washing machines? Looking again, it is clear that that is not what they are. In fact, I can't tell what they are. From anyone's peripheral, they would appear as a standard laundry contraption, but many details were incorrect. I squat down. The window on the front of each mechanism was a large rectangle of glass, only revealing a top half of the interior. A handle sat to the right of the door, and a joystick with a black top above that. I say door because the handle beside it was not attached, nor was there any obvious way to open the hatch to the front. I stand up to see a yellow sticker, bordered in red on the top. "Help the meat," reads the inscription. I've always been a curious person. Carla knows this, which is why I know she would understand if I were a bit late to our date night. What a story I would have to tell once I figured out the secret of these strange devices. I stop to look around. Perhaps someone is here, working security or maintenance or some kind of informative role. What I don't expect, however, is what presses the air from my lungs. A man, speckly gray hair hanging loosely and gangly, clinging to one of the handles of a mechanism. He is completely sideways in a squat position, left hand wrapped around the stainless steel handle, right hand piloting the joystick. His face is that of strain and concentration. "Excuse me, sir. Sir, if I may ask a few—" I attempt to grab his attention, but cut myself short. Not even a twitch of the eyebrow. His eyes are locked on the device. I peer into what would captivate him. The interior of the mechanism is filled with what appears to be a meat of some kind, the consistency of pulled pork, gilled and dark grayish-brown. A thin wire from the corner closest to the man's hand is angled and pulled through the meat, slicing it in an array pattern. A faint yellow light from the ceiling accentuates the disturbing sight. I try again to get the man's attention, this time tugging lightly on his jacket sleeve. A high-pitched yelp sends me tumbling backwards into the flowing crowd. Swears and prods shove me back to the open area of the sidewalk. I fiddle with my hair, returning it to its proper shape. Never have I heard a person, much less an aging man, make such a sound. A rabbit's blood-curdling desperation combined with that of an off-key cello. My hands sweat a cold perspiration. However, against my better judgment, I am still intrigued. I shake my head, a physical manifestation of my attempt to brush off the trauma. Instead, I look to another unmanned mechanism. Crouching down, I mess with the joystick. The air quiets for a moment, filtering out the noise of the crowd, but not intensely, and not but for a brief moment. I feel embarrassed almost, as if the machine was scolding me in that silence. "That isn't how I work, you ignorant fool." I take another look at the man, his stance clinging to the side of the machine like that, knuckles white, sweat lightly adorning his exposed forehead. I mentally prepare myself before getting into the same position. I grab onto the handle, lifting one foot onto the side, then two. It is easier than it looks. A faint whir crescendos and the yellow bulb inside heats up. I place my other hand on the joystick. Moving it around, I angle it in an array just as the man had been doing. I push forward, which in the front orientation of the mechanism would be left, and the wire presses down into the meat, flaying it into another segment. From witnessing the man's work, the meat looked gross, disturbing, not something to be fed to people. But from this angle, however, it looked almost appealing, like meat from a cheesesteak sandwich, a memory of which I recall from my trip to Philly, or the perfect steak from that one fancy place I took Carla a few months back. These memories built a facade over the passage of time. I had forgotten that my hand remained on the joystick, moving around, stringing through meat, tenderizing it. My eyes never wavered from the interior, watching my work, taking pride in it. Without stopping, I speculated why. Why was this so calming, pleasant? A dreamlike feeling crept its way into my veins, digging its way through my skin, wrapping itself around my spine, tugging at each tendon and muscle in my arm. In any other place, it would have been disturbing. Part of me felt like throwing up. The rest of me scolded that part. The rest of me was proud of this. I remembered my date. Like a broken trance, my arm let go, only then revealing how much it had burned. My fingers were numb and my veins were crying out, pressing out of my skin, trying to escape. I couldn't blame them. I turned my attention back to the mechanism, powering itself off. From the view of the sidewalk, however, I looked at the sky. Where once had been the brilliant radiance of the summer sunbeams, there was darkness. Light pollution masked the stars that we used to stare at, replaced now by neon signs and windows of lives of the ants of New York. With a sweaty hand, I clumsily pulled out my phone. Numerous phone calls and texts berated my return to the digital world. Most recent was from none other than Carla. "Fine. If that's how it is," it read. The date was August 14th. A piercing jolt ran through the walls of every one of my organs. I estimated in my head how long it had been. 53 days. The cold sweat returned. I thumbed through my phone, opening up my messages with Carla. A long line of texts sent punches to my heart. None of them mattered, however. The last was all that needed read to know how fucked I was. However, I knew she'd be active at this time of night. "Carla? It's a long story. I'm so extremely sorry," I texted. No response, then dots, then red. No further messages. I turned my slack-jawed expression to the mechanism. "Help the meat," reads the inscription. Yellow sticker, red outline. I look around me on the street. No one. Unusual for New York. Looking closer reveals I'm wrong. The man attached to the mechanism a few stations down is still here. Hard to see in the darkness. With my eyes adjusting, I see what I had not seen before with the crowd along the path. More people, a line of them, all attached in the same way as I was, concentrated, hand on the joystick, helping the meat. Apart from those sorry sights, however, no one walks by. No one shows up in the lights of their windows. No sirens or cars or angry night-goers echo the concrete walls of Manhattan. Even the wind is afraid to breathe too loud. To be a cog in the machine is to turn, shoulder to shoulder with other cogs. To be an ant is a pointless existence if there are no others, if you are without a colony. To live free of the joystick of the mechanism is a pointless existence if I am without Carla, if I am without anyone. But I don't have to be alone. The man's grip does not waver, nor does his attention. The yellowish glow floods his pores, his wrinkles. I do not have to be alone. I have him, and the others, shrouded in the distance, the long line of mechanisms. I have them too, my fellow cogs, my fellow ants, working in unison adjacent to help the meat. I wrap my palm around the stainless steel once more, one foot, then the other, hand on the joystick. I will not be alone. Another whir, and my face too is flooded with yellow light.